all souls will eventually access all things again. Whether if that's through death, people will die, they'll cross over and they'll see it all again, or controlled out-of-body state. That is an inevitable event no matter which path you choose. You could choose trillions of different paths of experiences. You will reach that final destination, that preset marker of what this construct is preset for, which is accessing all things again. When you experience that which has not been an experience before, it gives you a certain perceptual wisdom that could have never been birthed unless it was experienced. So, and that adds to your soul in a way that I can't even fully comprehend, even though I've been out of my body. But when you're there permanently, then everything just comes in.
Darius J Wright, welcome on the show, brother. What are you most excited about right now in your life?
Well, what I'm most excited about is that the information's getting shared out to the people in whatever way it's going to reach. Because this is, for me, in the beginning, being told about the great work, which is waking people up to the other side. This has become the most direct path for that. Because you could always be told about something, but there's a difference between being told about something and experiencing it for yourself. So when you experience something for yourself, you become a truly empowered soul. And to me, that is one of the greatest things that a soul could do, because they fully stand in their power and stand in their fullest expression without being told by anybody else. So.
It's almost, and there was like a transitional moment on planet Earth where we went from living this time of going to the organization, going to the priest, going to the religious leader for that connection with God. And now we're sort of going much more within. The name of this podcast is Just Happened precisely because of that, because all the paths right now that we're taking are leading us inward. And you know, your story is fascinating because since a very young age, and I feel like this is happening to a lot of younger children right now, is their channel is completely open to other constructs, dimensions, multidimensional planes. And what you mentioned about this great work of getting people to understand and see the other side, I wanted to just start off why you believe that right now is a time in humanity where we're beginning to be able to see the other side with new eyes or with a new consciousness. What is going on there?
Well, it's not necessarily seeing it with because the other side has always been present. It's not necessarily changing. There's a core to the foundation of there, but it's a remembrance again, right? So people have been away from home far too long, and they've forgotten their home, which is the other side. And this is why they have fear. This is why they fear. And I also want to go into what you said about religion as well, the giving your power away, right? Because we, through a lot of the systems that are in place now, is all designed around you, the soul, giving your power away to something outside of yourself. And this is in religion, this is in education, right? And it's a very rare when someone or something is actually telling the soul, here you go. This is a opportunity. Well, not an opportunity, but a thing that allows you to not give your power away to anything else, because doing that is one of the ways, other than fear, to disempower the soul, which is to constantly keep them worshiping something outside of themselves, because all is accessible within you, and all of the abilities, the dormant abilities and capabilities is within you, within each individual soul to do so. So, yeah.
So we are, the other side has always been there, essentially. Now, yes, you've gotten to experience that other side directly through your own experience. More so on what is that like? What was your process into initiating yourself into the other side? Because I know you had to get across a lot of fears to be able to go even deeper on other levels and access other information. So what was your process like with the other side?
So when people think of life after death, other side, which is what I'm referring to when you cross over, right? Which it could be experienced through controlled out of body state, which is a controlled near death. Really, it's as physical as this physical realm that we're living within. So this physical realm is, you have a physical body, you have what you would say density, right? You could interact with things, you could touch. Same thing applies over there, as above, so below, as within, so without, right? So your soul is physical, right? So the first time experiencing that was a massive shock to me, because I thought it was going to be something different. Like I was just going to be this light orb spinning in space, right? But the soul has physicality, it has density, there is contact there, there's communication, right? So we're in this realm 1, which is called the earthly realm, right? And here is where all the distortions happens. Once you're there, out of your body, near death, it is all the pleasures of physicality with no limitations, right? And that's the eternal aspect of your soul, and where you always came, where you came from, the eternal aspect of you. So, yeah. Does that answer it?
Yeah. Why do people have a fear of dying in the first place? Because if this is a controlled near-death experience, and we've had other near-death experiencers on the show, if the out-of-body experience is very similar to the near-death experience, where a lot of these people say that the other side is way more real than real, when you talk about dying and going into this controlled process of dying, how do you get across that fear? You know, because that fear is so initial. That's an instinct for us to survive. So when you're going to these experiences, how do you surrender to that?
Yeah. Okay. So this goes into what I said in the very beginning of this, is the reason why people fear is because, I'm not saying you, but to who's listening to this, you have been away far too long and have forgotten your home. This is why you fear, because when you're there again, right, you realize that there's nothing to fear, because who you are is the opposite of fear, right? Even though that's an emotion, but you are the opposite of that, because how could you be afraid of something when you realize that you are an eternal being and live on forever, and nothing could harm you, the soul, unless you believe it to be so. Yeah. So when you realize these things, then fear automatically dissipates. You realize that it's the greatest illusion on the soul. And in a lot of fear-based narrative things, because of the power of your will, of the soul and your manifestation, because we are creator beings, right? When you start projecting your thoughts, when you start projecting your energy in certain directions, fear-based or whatever, you create those temporary experiences, right? Same applies with near-death experience stories as well. You know, some people get, based on their fears, they experience, etc. Right? So when you are accessing these spaces and you are seeing certain things as well, right? You just need to understand that nothing can touch or harm you, the soul, unless you believe it to be so. Like I've stated already, you create these temporary illusions of entrapment. Yeah. Yeah. So there's really nothing to fear at all when it comes to the soul aspect. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've also talked about that we have this field around not only our physical body, but there's a whole field that we can access. And when you began from a very early age going into these experiences, you're sort of seeing realms in a different way, and you're seeing people's thoughts, you're seeing people's emotions, you're seeing how some people have such uncontrolled emotions that, you know, they become very perceptive, or they become very, I would say, in a way, they can get harmed if they're so opened. And you talked about this importance of creating a barrier around your field. Is that something that you had to do when you started going into these realms, just to put a protection field around you, or a barrier to block out anything that was maybe in a way had other lower frequency than just the high frequency?
Yeah, gotcha. So it's not necessarily that I created a field around me. That's a way to do it. Like you can do that if that's the way you want to think about it. You create a shield or whatever. But instead, I just got into the place of what I've stated, which is nothing could touch or harm me, the soul, unless I believe it to be so. And that in itself is you cannot penetrate that field, right? So it's basically like, you know, think about it this way. You can have different emotions, different frequencies being projected at the soul, but if you are in a baseline template, then nothing can interfere with that. So for a good example, right, let's just go the purest form of water that you could think about, right? So you could, and let's just call that love, unconditional love, right? So the purest form of water. Now you could have a lot of parasites, right, all around, and they could feast on decaying water, dead water, or like, moldy water. But you put that parasite inside the purity of water, won't even stand a chance. So when you are in that frequency, right, then nothing can touch you. And in that love, unconditional love frequency, then literally you become, in a sense, that field. Nothing can penetrate that.
Yeah. So even before popping out of your body, you need to be in that state, or else what could happen?
Not necessarily, no. So you don't need to be in that state when you're coming out of your body. It's just if you are in fear-based things, if your emotions are out of control, right? When you come out, you will experience subconscious things projected in your room, in your thought forms projected in that space. I want to go back to what you said before when you were talking about, you're accessing thought forms and it's chaotic, because when you come out, you access all of it. You see it. You see thought forms, you see other people's thought forms, etc. Potential time, right? Because thoughts and time are very similar. It's just the amount of focus someone puts on the potential thought form, which will create a time event, right? So all of these things that you think deep down within that you haven't dealt with here is still presented to you once you leave the body, right? This is why all of the accounts you can look at, every single one, you'll find a theme with near-death experience people. If they haven't worked on certain things, temporarily they will experience that which they have the most emotion attached to it. Typically, this is hell, right? They experience that temporarily. They're like, I've had enough, reach out. And then they access all things again. Because when you're in a constant state of fear and high-end emotions like that, you are creating this massive, you could say, wall for yourself, in a sense, because you're blocking yourself off. Fear is the number one way to control the soul. It's the number one way to block you off from access to information as well.
You mentioned that we've been very far away from home. And I wanted to ask you, let's run down for people, where is that initial home? If you want to run through what it really is, the nature of reality from your perspective, how you've experienced it. And I think the best type of information is direct experience. So when you started going and traversing these different realms, what did you come across? And why do you believe this is our source point? Why is this our true home?
Why is the other side our true home?
Yeah.
So basically we are within a construct right now, right? So this construct, there's many of them on the other side. So when you are outside of the construct, that is what you would consider the foundation of all things. You could say the creation of all things, right? Could also be as the void as well, the black space, right? This is where you end up. For instance, if you go way, way, way back, what I was showing back, 16 years old by Celeste, right? Being called Celeste, she showed me the void, the black space, right? Which is the beginning. You could say the beginning, even though there never was a beginning, but let's just say beginning point of all things, right? And light is birth from darkness, right? So basically, good thing to even illustrate this further. One people that are religious, God created the firmament, this earthly realm. Said, let there be light. Light was always secondary. Same thing happens when you close your eyes, you're in blackness. And then when you start to enter or think of something, imagine something, you birth the light in creation. Yeah. So like I said, as above, so below, as within, so without. So it's similar to the other side. When you're there, the other side, completely out of all things, you are in total peace, right? In imbalance in a sense. And then when you want to experience something, you create that through birthing the light in creation, through your imagination and your will to do so. But this construct in particular, the one that we're in, isn't necessarily the foundation of the other side. It's just a construct for an experience that contains 12 realms, right? So we're in a construct that has 12 realms. This is where you get the many different points, like heaven. You get the angelic realm, the galactics, right? Ancients realm. Yeah. You get Egypt and Atlantis templates playing out here. All exist here within this construct. When people say that this is the center of the universe, right? This construct is the center. This realm that we're in, realm 1, because there's 12. This is the center of this construct creation. So it is the center of the universe within this particular construct, but there's many.
And there's something special about that number 12. You said even potentially 13. So I don't know if you want to run down in detail the 12 realms, and we can go from there. And also why potentially there might be this 13th realm, which I heard you mention in this construct.
Yeah, so the 13 is more like the container. It's like the containing everything. When I was shown in the halls of Amenti this is where I was really getting the detailed and mapping out system of the entire construct that we live within. They have certain I called them cores, but they called them Stargates when I first was introduced to what this was, right? And so there are, like I said before, I said this like 3 times, I think, as above, so below, as within, so without, etc. The physical body is perfectly mirrored to the design of the body is perfectly mirrored to how this construct was created. So you look at, even though these are distortions, right? So the physical body has 12 strand DNA. It's supposed to have 13, right? Some people say 12 chakras, 13, 12 realms,
planets.
13. Well, not really planets, but yeah, I mean, you could say that there are different points and nodes and stuff like that. Dimensional space access points. Stars and what people call planets are literally just fixed dimensional space access points within this construct. Yeah. So basically, our bodies are mirrored off that, and with that, there's preset, you could say, limitations on the physical body, right, of what it can access and what it could do within the construct creation, because it's basically created off of it, right? But the soul has no limitations, because the soul cannot be measured. You cannot measure something that is basically not limited, right?
Yeah.
So
we're in this construct with the realm being Earth, and that is the first realm. You said at the center, we're here in this realm. When you start going up until 12, where do you encounter in 2 and 3? And when you go out of your body, that's something I was curious about. When you talked about the heavenly realm, which you said is the 5th, do you say, I want to go to this realm? And then all of a sudden you're there? Like, how are you taken and navigate when you're outside of your body to these different realms? You have a spirit guide with you?
Yeah. So when I was, the places that I've been have access, I was first taken there, right? And then after that, I was able to command to go to these locations, because it's just like the imprint is there for me. So when leaving the body, I could either say I command to go blank, or I would open up my bedroom door and immediately I would be pulled into that space. You could call it, you could say dimensional space travel. Which is kind of interesting, because you think dimensional space travel, typically people think is that you're traveling towards it, when really it's coming towards you. Literally, reality is bending and coming towards you, underneath you. So because this goes into all is within, right? Yeah. So you never actually, when you're going into dimensional spaces or traveling in the out of body state, you're not actually going. It's all coming towards you. Yeah.
So you place the intention.
That's a bending.
And you command, I want to visit the halls of Amenti. So I know that when you started getting past all of this fear, you started accessing other things, and especially things like deceased loved ones that had passed away. Your Uncle Bob, he was the one that took you to the halls of Amenti in the first place. Do you want to run down what that experience was like? Because the halls of Amenti have been talked about in sacred texts for thousands of years, from ancient Egypt. We've been told they're located in one of the pyramids. So what was that experience like to actually go there with your uncle that had passed away? And just like running through your initial experience of the shock of being there and getting access to all this information.
So the first time that I was taken to the halls of Amenti was basically, there was a few weeks leading up to that prior, where I was still battling with a lot of unconscious fear-based things that were still in my field. And I got to a point where I was just like done with it, very similar to a lot of near-death experience people when they say I'm done, and then everything opens up again. Similar, that's what took place. And when I came out of my body, I was in sleep paralysis, right? And then through the method that I do, I just come out of my body, sit up, look at my body sleeping on the bed, looking at my soul, my soul hands, just as physical. I end up walking to the mirror in the bathroom because I was trying to test things with the mirror to see certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing I know is that the faucet in my the sink was just pouring red, which is a certain frequency,
Wow.
right? And next thing I know, immediately, bam, reality starts to come towards me, and I'm in the pyramids, like the middle pyramid. My Uncle Bob is standing to the left of me. I'm here, and all of a sudden, these, you could say, stairways open up in the middle of the pyramid to access.
You saw your uncle,
halls.
and you're like, "Yo, what are you doing here?"
Yeah. Well, not necessarily. Is because he was always a very, you could say, spiritual person anyway. So the connection there was very, you know, what it was just like, all right, because I've been trying to contact him prior to this for like a year or so, and that was So it took me a while to actually make contact with him, but that was a contact that I made, and he was actually showing me the halls, inside the halls. What's interesting, when you're inside the halls of Amenti, there are doorways, right? And they're just open. All of them are open. Like there's not like a door you have to open. Every passageway is open to the soul. But what's interesting is certain things you won't necessarily be able to access based off if your signature is not in a certain frequency. You could say integrity, love, right? And then you could try to walk through that and you won't gain the information if you are not in the energetic match of it, right? So that was something that was interesting to me. The one thing that I did access the first time was going through one of the doorways and seeing a crystal, right? Which had a white fringe around it, like a white fringe crystal. Yeah. And this crystal was actually, it changed colors based off of the soul's signature, and mine was green, very deep green. When I looked at it, and basically it changes based off each individual soul that interacts with that crystal will change different colors based off the signature and stuff that the soul's bringing to that space. When you walk down that middle hall and you go all the way down, as I was showing as well, they have an entire layout of this construct design, right? They have the mapping system of the construct. They have the 12 realms.
Sort of like an architect, like something built this construct.
Yeah.
Can you interact with the beings that built it?
Yeah. It's like having a communication like this. Well, the interaction. Yeah. So some of it's telepathic as well. So some of it's just like you just feel the information, like they communicate with you that way. But some of it's just like communicating like this. Yeah. But once you're there, they show you everything. This is why the pyramids are aligned to the stars, because stars act as fixed dimensional space gateway points, right? So this is why you go into Bermuda Triangle, right, where things just disappear, because it's acting as dimensional space access points, right? You could say time travel, but it's not really time travel. It's just accessing many different spaces within the construct design. Right. And so they also have inside the halls as well, they mapped out all the 12 Stargates, right? Going to the 12th Stargate, you know, all of the different Stargates, which could, the 12th one is the one that exits you out of the construct completely. So you could see it from, getting a thumbs up. I didn't know that reaction was there.
I didn't even know. I was like, that was Uncle Bob. He's like, okay, so you got it there. Cool. You got it, boy.
Yeah, there you go. Spilling it all out. Yeah.
So you talked about the halls of Amenti as also they're representing the most recent past within this realm before the reset. So I don't know what you could talk about in terms of this reset that may have happened.
You look at the Great Flood, you look at the Mud Flood, you look at those things, right? The Milky Way, when people say the Milky Way galaxy, right? I was part of the flood. I was part of, you could say, the crack within the firmament above us, the waters above. Yeah. Waters above, waters below, water separated from the waters. I was part of the Great Flood event.
So that was the last reset before the one that we're going into.
That's right? Yeah. That's what I've gotten so far. I don't know the exact time frame. I wasn't given. It was done in however many years, but I know that basically the history of what we're given in the long duration of time is not necessarily true, right? Because that was very recent. I would even say even though I don't have the clarity. So this would be me just theorizing at the moment, right? I would say it's no longer than 3,000 years.
Yeah. And in these halls, you talk about there's a room where there's a round table. And in this round table, there are discussions that take place about decisions that may need to be taken within this realm. So were you able to see from afar what type of discussions were taking place? And sort of what is that like?
Yeah, so that was I didn't even think I brought that one up in other interviews, but that's but yeah,
do our research
that was yeah, no, that's good. That experience was before, you could say, the lockdown of the entire world, right? And what I was told in that aspect when I was there is it's a big round table, similar to the how they show you the entire mapping system of the construct, and there's about 100 people, I would say, around that table.
Different
right?
beings, or do they all look the same?
So different, but mainly human. Like the physical body, the suit that we're using, depending, doesn't matter with the race. Like, Caucasian, darker skin, the Prometheus beings as well. You have angelic looking beings, like they all have same layout, because the physical body is you could say the perfected version of the soul's expression within an experience.
It's all sacred geometry.
Well, imprints. Imprints of the soul, the true. But they were telling me back then, before the lockdown happened of the whole world, is this is their exact words, right? And I don't like to get caught up in too much of New Agey terminology, because I just like to be very direct. But this is how they said it to me. This is what was stated. They said the light workers within this realm, right, has reached such a state that by basically the interference, etc., here will end up doing more harm than good. And then also I was told slightly after that as well, right, is that there's going to be a mass exodus of souls, right? And then prior to that, the lockdown, right? The whole world locking down, depending on where people are at consciously with that, or what that was about, right? Which which I won't necessarily state. People that know have the eyes to see it. That don't, they won't see it. But that was basically a mass exodus of a lot of souls at that particular time event. All right, and that's what I was told back then when that was happening as well. Before that happened. Yeah,
it's super interesting that you mentioned about the light workers, and how if there's way too many, or if the number becomes significantly increasing, then we could do more harm than good. Do you have any insight as to in what ways that would be? Are we talking environmental, more energetic, because of the balance with the dark? I'm not sure what you meant by that.
All right. So this is how it was referred to me. It had to do with when souls reach a certain level of consciousness. All right. So we're just going to use higher and above hierarchy sense, right? So if you have let's just say you're an input, like for electricity, a socket, right? Yeah. And let's say that socket could only handle a certain energetic current, right? And this is where our soul is here. It's plugged in, right? And so therefore everything's working fine. The soul's not being affected. The input is not being affected either. But when the consciousness increases, right? When you try to keep that soul in that socket, right, what's going to happen, there's going to be an arcing effect, a distortion, right? Which then will cause more harm than good.
I see. If I can try to put it in my own words, is that as the level of consciousness...
You could probably do better, maybe.
No. I just want to see if I understood, because as the level of consciousness ascends, then we are seeing more of the illusion of the construct. And by seeing the illusion, the construct has less of a grip on the being that is incarnated. Would it be fair to say that?
That's another way to put it. I think a better way to put it would probably be this. You know how crabs shed their shells?
Yeah. I actually
Similar
did
to
not
that.
know that.
Or maybe it's crabs. It's something that I believe it's crabs or any.
Yeah.
Yeah. They basically, when they get too big or whatever, they basically, the shell or whatever,
Yeah.
they detach from it.
It's
and
like
they have
we're
a new
shedding our skin every 7 or so years. You talked about the 12th Stargate where we completely exit the construct. Have you gotten to that point of completely seeing beyond of the construct? That looks like?
I'll share my screen and show you.
Yeah.
So you could see that image there?
Yeah, just loaded.
Yeah. So when you're out of the construct completely, it's very, very similar to this. So you see how the people are just standing around. You could say these balls right here are constructs, right? So this is a construct. The one that we're in is the center stage, right? So it's you could say the most viewed thing on the other side at the present moment, right? And as I was, let me just, there we go. Actually, just do this.
Huh.
Yep. So yeah, once you're out, it's very similar to this. I just put it in full screen, so it's probably easier to see.
Yeah.
And like I said, the soul that you have is physical, right? There's physicality outside of this construct completely. Also viewed like this, you could say I've been showing the many different constructs stacked on God's shelves, and this is another image that I put together here, or to illustrate what I was showing as well. Like there's beings there that actually walk and actually are viewing these constructs from the outside, right? Like I said, this one is the one that we're in right now. Some of them has been viewed to me as puddles on the floor as well, right? So like, just like water essentially that you step into to have a certain experience. This one that we're in.
They're like little experiments.
You could say that, yeah.
And what are these experiments for?
Well, experience. So the experience and existence go hand in hand. You can't have experience without existence without experience. So you're in a constant state of creating, right? You're a creator being. I mean, this is one of the most common basic understandings. We're a creator being on the physical sense and also on the soul sense as well. Yeah. But this one that we're in, this is particular to the 12 realms, supposed to be 13, originally 13. And this is just a visual that you could see as well of sort of an animated version of this, or sort of what the construct looks like. It's you could say it's God's creation. Water's above, water's below, right? As this, yeah.
So you can essentially pop out and see this whole Earth construct from that point of view, and from that point of view, what is different? Because sometimes when we see things from a higher perspectives, we see it differently. So how are you seeing it differently when you can view it from the outside looking in?
So what do you necessarily mean from that? Because this is it's not necessarily going to be viewed differently by each soul. This is
yeah. It's sort of like
is that what you're saying?
Sort of like the analogy of the astronauts when they went to the moon and they looked back at Earth, and it had this psychological effect in them of seeing Earth from that perspective. Did you have something similar going on where you started seeing things completely different from seeing the construct from the outside looking in?
Yeah. So it gave me the whole whole understanding of where we are, what we are, and it just gave me a much better understanding of everything, really. I mean, you've seen this image. I've shared this many times in many interviews, so it feels like I'm repeating myself just by going over this. But construct, the realms, dimensional spaces. Think of the realms as a house, dimensional spaces as the rooms within the house. So this is where you access thought forms, things like that as well within the CERN. And all of this, like the whole construct model, it's like all of it's basically written about in other texts, things like that, how everything is contained within this construct as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's all there. It's always been here. Yeah. This is even where you get as well when you like the halls of Amenti, like sort of the images here that I put together. Like, these are the images of beings and what beings look like. This is the best one that I could like illustrate to show you the halls of Amenti, Egypt and Atlantis of sort of what I was seeing. And when you interact with these beings, once you're out of your body as well, when you are something that I would access as well, when it comes to this image also, is when I talk about like you, I don't think I brought this up yet, but when you come into this realm, you come into this realm through water, right? So I'll actually just stop sharing my screen real quick, because I think I've shared everything that I wanted to related to that. Yeah. Okay. I'll stop sharing my screen. Stop there real quick. Yep. So one thing as well, when you come into this realm as well, you come into this realm through water. So it's, it's when you go into the water, your memories bleed through the realm, right? This is why you have a lot of why we have amnesia. We forget, right? This is why water also contains memory, right? The water contains memory of all of it, right?
Yeah.
So you could freeze water and then look at the whole memory of certain things that has taken place all the way from the beginning.
Yeah. When you were living in Morocco, you were doing this every single day for about a year or so. And you said that basically fried your nervous system, because when you're going to, these out of body, you're experiencing high frequency energy, bringing that back into the body must take a huge toll. So right now, if my understanding is correct, you reduce that to about one time a week.
Yeah.
Right? What are you exploring now in your present time?
More of the presently I've been mapping out the 12 realms and the names of the 12 realms. That's what I've been trying to get more clarity on and information when coming out of my body. So I have the construct design. I know that realm 5 is the heavenly realms, what people call heaven. I know the angelic, right, is realm 7, so what people call angels. That's part of realm 7. Realm 9 is the it's what people call, you could say, the God template, essentially. So what people consider gods and stuff, that's realm 9, right? And realm 1 is the earth, where we are, the earthly realm. And what I've gotten recently is the Edom, right? Realm 6. This is where you get 666, right? Edom, created from, angels or the angelics, right? The Eden realm, 666, and then the fall, all that stuff. So that sort of things that I've been accessing recently, and trying to just map out certain names, locations, etc., to keep on pinpointing things, because that's the reason why I keep on coming out of my body. Yeah. So I could just keep on pinpointing, like a map, and connecting dots and going, okay, that's where that is. That's where that is. That's what makes sense, because it's being shown this once is difficult to just have it all come in and have it all express. But when you're able to come out multiple times and pinpoint certain things, it just gives you more and more and more clarity over the years of doing it. Right. So it's, yeah.
Do you think you'll get to the point where you have a clear map of all of it, or is it just way too vast to understand from a human perspective?
Well, I think I have a very clear, based off of me explaining it, a very clear map of it, right? Mm-hmm. So the other side as a whole. Yeah. But in terms of, if you were to ask me something like that, maybe something I'll have to pinpoint in and locate and access, because all things is located within the records, the universal records anyways. So it's all recorded. There's an entire database of all things. All the 12 realms, all the different time templates that have played out here is all stored in the records of all things, right? And that's even all the other experiences on the other side is also recorded as well, which can be accessed, right? Which is, but as a whole, yeah, I pretty much feel that I've been shown a lot of things of how things, the whole picture works, but the pinpointing of accuracy of minute details is what I've been doing at the moment.
Yeah. I want to talk about real quick about the energetic signature that you talked about, that sort of acts as a multi-factor authentication system to access certain types of information. Do we get to refine our energy signature here in order to, when we're on the other side, we can access different things? Or what does it take to create a energy signature that allows you to go to different realms, different information points? Can you refine that here?
So once you're out of the construct, you do have the ability to access, right? When you could say fully cross over or access that. When you're completely outside of the construct of what I was showing, you could access things, right? But the only thing that I found that was a limitation on me with accessing certain information was particular to the halls of Amenti for some reason, which was because I was still based in a little bit of fear, right? And that fear just tends to cut. It creates this wall. Like I don't know how else to explain it. It's just that is the frequency, the opposite of you, which cuts you off from accessing that which you have the right to access. So, yeah.
So you've had to train yourself to let go and be in an open-hearted space while you're still in the out-of-body experience.
To get rid of fear, yes, and stand in my signature without fear. Once you get rid of fear and you stand in your truth in that way, then you are in, you could say, the highest frequency in that sense, because fear is the thing that's going to take your signature, your highest energy, and suppress it. Yeah. So once that is lifted, right, then it's a
clear gateway,
speedway train. Right to it.
Fast ascension. I'm really curious as to how you see when we talk about, we are these souls. Typically we incarnate with, and I've heard it put this way, as we are incarnated with a group of souls. Do you see it in that way as well, where we are part of a soul group? Or the people that we meet here in these physical bodies, in this reality, is that predetermined? Is that planned? Is there some type of destiny that's working through all of this?
Okay. Yeah. So some people come in here with what people would call a soul family, right? A group, right? And some people have, this is where there's just a group, and you just instantly have these connections with a whole bunch of people. You just know, right? Some things are pre-planned, certain event markers of coming to a head, right? Is preset, right? Now, some are not, right? So some souls come in here alone as well. This is why when some souls come in here through a family, you'll say they're not necessarily connected to that. That like there's the soul just knows, like they could be connected to it in just like the emotional sense, whatever, but it's not all the time, right? Some people come in here as pairs, original pairs as well, which is quite different from what people think of twin flame type stuff, right? Okay. It's just original pairs are just souls that have been connected, and you could say bonded together from the very beginning, but not necessarily that they are a completely, you are separating your soul, and they are like that. You are your own soul. It's just you've had many experiences, and those are what original pairs are as well. So through the family, family groupings and individual, it's all to the above.
Huh. And do we have helpers on the other side that can influence or help us here in this reality while we're in these bodies?
Yeah, they're trying to help you all the time. Just people ignore it. Like myself, ignoring things and being in fear all the time, which is cutting off that access, cutting off that communication. A lot of people have natural intuition. You don't necessarily need to come out of your body to just access what people call helpers or soul guides, etc., are trying to assist you with. You just need to be attuned and just listen to the voice that everybody has. There's a voice when you're quiet, right? That voice, you can start thinking, speaking, right? People shut that down and ignore it, but that's always guiding you. That's your guiding force, right? And that's also the guiding intuition force of where they try to communicate telepathically with you to help you on certain things, but people just ignore it typically.
It's interesting that you put it as like a telepathic communication, because sometimes you'll get this like thought that clears out all other thoughts, and it's like, you should do this. Maybe, we can put that in perspective. That's our helpers. That's our guides on the other side, trying to help us make the right decisions and avoid any harm in our way.
Yeah. I mean, but sometimes certain things need to be experienced. Like, some people need to be yanked sometimes, and give or take.
Yeah. Because we're living in the extremes.
Yeah.
When you mentioned that Earth,
it's funny. Yep.
When you mentioned that Earth is the most viewed thing right now, as a construct, why is that so? What is so interesting about Earth right now?
It's the unexperienced. So this realm was originally created to experience that which we are not on the other side. So it was the unexperienced. And so the unexperienced, because of that, is the, you could say, the most viewed thing on the other side at the moment. This is why it's the center of all things. This is why when people say earthly realm is the center of creation, that's true, because it's the center, like I've stated before, center of the construct creation, but also the center stage at this very moment. Because when you experience that which has not been experienced before, it gives you a certain perceptual wisdom that could have never been birthed unless it was experienced, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that adds to your soul in a way that I can't even fully comprehend, even though I've been out of my body. But when you're there permanently, then everything just comes in. But this based off what I was showing all the way from 16 years old with Celeste to present date as well, that this adds to your soul in such a way that it's just like, for me anyways, it was more like 50% of all my soul experiences.
Being on Earth,
even more.
Being on Earth was 50%.
Earthly realm, experiencing that which we are not,
Because it's the most dense. Is it because it's the furthest away of who we are?
So you're experiencing that which we're not. So basically, experiencing that which we're not, like I've said, gives you a perceptional wisdom that could not have been birthed unless it was experienced, right? So it's not necessarily something I can even speak on yet, of how much it adds to you or how much it changes you, because that's not yet I'm not yet fully transitioned. I can access it, right? Everybody can access it through leaving the body. But when you're fully there permanently and you are done, right? That's it. I mean, it's adding to me now, anyways, through doing it. But there's something, it adds to you a lot more as well, based off what I've been told and shown at 16. Yeah,
that's when you're accessing the soul records, right? That goes into the past lifetimes, that goes into things like reincarnation. When it comes to the soul records, how do people access that in terms of having that knowingness that you've been on Earth 50% of your experiences? What is that? What are those records like?
What I said about the 50% and stuff like that was how much it adds to your soul. Now I don't know. It's just a feeling. It's an intuition that when you're there, you just feel it. Like can't really put that in words in particular. But when you are, if I go back to what you said with the past lives and records and stuff, that like all that's accessible. I've accessed many of mine as well. A lot of them have, a majority of the time when I'm accessing things is that time in Egyptian and Atlantis as well, because Egypt and Atlantis is the same place. They're not separate places. So, but I've been visiting that a lot with past lives, etc. But when you look into the Egypt and like past lives, when you're talking about past lives, mine in particular, one that I keep on accessing is back into Egypt, and it's Egypt and Atlantis, right? Because Egypt and Atlantis are the same place. They're not different. A lot of people think that Egypt is different from Atlantis. They are the same. They're the same thing. You might as well just merge Egypt and Atlantis into one word.
Let's go deeper into that. Because a lot of it, I mean, when Plato went to ancient Egypt and he wrote about Atlantis for the first time, it was because the Egyptians told him that they were getting their knowledge from the Atlanteans, from Atlantis. So is it when you've experienced it, what was that like?
Well, the whole I put an entire presentation on this, which I won't necessarily go into here, but when you look at the pyramids, right, desert, it was filled with water, right? That was the same time frame based off what I've accessed, right? In the halls of Amenti. So you look at Atlantis, filled with water, lush environment. Egypt was the same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. The same exact thing. So I don't necessarily know the Plato stories, or I think you said Plato. I don't know any of that. And I don't necessarily read anything. I actually don't read anything or look up anything like that. So it's just experience saying how it is. But that's what I've accessed anyways.
Yeah. You talked about once about a underwater pyramid with a green portal. Is that important to you in any way?
I was just showing that once, and that was part of a being was showing me one of the portals that were still activated in the it's underwater ocean. It was in the ocean. It was a green portal. I was actually showing that was part of the exit, right? Yeah. Where, I don't know, because I didn't take it, and the next thing I know, I woke up in my body, and but I've never been taken there again prior.
So interesting.
Or since.
Yeah. Who knows about all these portals that are on Earth, that are taking us between dimensions? Like who has the knowledge, and are there people that are using these portals actively right now?
Yeah, they're being used all the time by the beings just outside of our frequency. All right, so you could say different realms that like when you're out of your body, you're in your soul. It's just a different. You're slightly changing the frequency, and all these beings are using these things. Like all exist here right now. It's just in another state that can't necessarily be accessed with the physical body or seen because of the distortions and limiters on the physical body, but can be seen and accessed once outside of the body, inside your soul. And all of these beings are accessing these things.
So is it
based off what I've been? Yeah.
Are they using it more because of travel purposes only, like to get from one place to the other, or is there a different purpose?
Yeah. It's just traveling, the whole construct. It's communication with other beings, other races. It's just it's like you look at it as basically, so Australia. I'm in Australia, so it's like, okay, I've learned the culture and the dynamic of Australia, right? So I'm just going to take a dimensional space access point to learn more of Bali or Thailand, right? Yeah. So it's more of that if you look at it like that. So when you're accessing these spaces, all these beings are accessing. It's like that. They're just traveling to different locations within the entirety of the construct for information, pleasure, right? Because in the heavenly realms, in the cathedrals, right, is the place that I've accessed was very pleasurable, right?
In what way?
All of it's for there's when people think that things that we experience here, the pleasures, are not there, got it totally wrong, right? There are all the pleasures of the physical body is there, so you could delight in your senses on the other side once out of the body as well, right? So in short, no, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So money is a topic that is huge, and we need it to function in this reality. And you've talked about money before, and how souls on the other side, they exchange energy differently than how we do here. If you want to sort of highlight what that was like when you were shown.
Okay, so the exchange of soul is based off signature on the other side, and also the experience in it's based off signature. Now, if we were to model the financial system of like let's just say a millionaire or billionaire or whatever it is, like money does not exist there, right, at all. So what does exist though is what is looked up to is the experience and wisdom that the soul has. That is what you would say is the ultimate form of currency. So the wisdom and the experience of each of the soul, that is what people look up to. But here, because it's such a distortion, what people look up to is distortions, people standing out of integrity just because they have money and success, and what they do, the means to get there, right? If it's outside of integrity, doesn't matter. That's what still gets looked up to, and people just follow that. They follow those distortions within this realm because it's a distortion here. Flip that in reverse. That's what's looked up to in terms of integrity, unconditional love as well. Getting another thumbs up. Yeah, unconditional love as well. That is what is the highest form of you could say currency on the other side.
Wow, that's profound, because imagine if we were to function like that in this realm, how different things would be.
People here have already. This is why I said people have forgotten how important each individual soul is, and they have become so materialistic by believing that the universe dictates consciousness instead the consciousness dictates the universe, and therefore believing that the universe dictates consciousness, they believe in materialistic things. There may be an end to them, and so they're so hyper focused on possessing things here, possession, which is based off of fear. Possession, attachment, all based off of fear-based things. And so people here place more value in a piece of paper than they do the actual soul, because you'll never see a homeless $50 bill, but you'll always see a homeless person.
Wow. Mic drop. When you're on the other side, brother, do the souls have any possessions at all?
Well, you like experiences, yeah. So like, what do you mean in terms of possessions exactly?
Yeah, we're talking in this realm. We talk about like as a possession, we have the car, the house.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah.
You know, like is that sort of translated as well in a different way on the other side, or there's no possessions?
Yeah. I mean, you create things, so you have experiences, but you're not necessarily. It's not necessarily based in fear of loss, because there's no loss on the other side. See what I mean? So here you could lose something. You have the illusion of loss. All right. So I could have the illusion of having and then loss. There, you're always in a state of have. Right.
Yeah. You talked about that we create them, and you also
hold on. Am I still lagging out a little bit? You're
good now. You're good.
Okay. Okay. Just checking.
Am I lagging? Am I good?
No. I'm just checking. That's all. All good. Because I've lagged out like 2 times or something. But yeah.
Well, actually, let's get into that, because I've interviewed a couple people that are energy workers, or they've had near-death experiences, and they mentioned how when they came back, a lot of them did have the choice to come back. Some weird stuff started happening with technology, with the frequencies. Is that sort of what's been happening or going on in this conversation with the lagging out, or it's sort of you're working with new frequencies coming back from the other side?
Yeah, so I mean that's happened to me quite a bit, and I could say it's even happening right now in this interview, because the soul in a sense does you could say it absorbs things. So the more higher the frequency of the soul, it's also absorbing,
like a magnet,
pretty much.
Huh. So have you seen that you're attracting more after going through all of these experiences on the other side, training your nervous systems in many ways? Like, do you feel more magnetic in this reality?
Different, very, very different. And so some of my natural gifts and natural intuition has been heightened. Absolutely. So like just natural instincts, natural things that I used to ignore. That's just like, because I know the feeling now out of the body. I could see it materialize like that once I'm out of my body, thinking bam, 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 bam. I know the time delay here and stuff like that. So I know by trusting that it's that certain things have been heightened. Yeah.
Let's go into that time delay, because you mentioned that time is married to thoughts. So yes. How is that different in this realm than when you're on the other side?
So on the other side, how time works, how it was viewed to me, is how they view it as all is happening. right? And I've shared this one before with the deck of cards, but I'll share it here as well. How they view time is, it was showed to me like this: being spread out a deck of cards on a table. She said, we experience time from each event, going from this card to this card to this card. How they view it is, she put all the cards together, she looked down, and all things are happening all at once. Now, how we experience it here, right, is just common sense, right? Is we experience the event, event. Now, why thoughts and time are married is because what you think and what you focus on, you literally start to create that potentiality of time event to walk that path, right? So this is why it's changing yourself. Like if you're focusing on something over here, like eventually you will experience some aspect of it. This is why they use that creational power of what we naturally have within us. But people don't realize that they are taking advantage of that creational power, because of people don't see the immediate gratifications of the fruit of their labor, because they have to plant the seeds first. You reap what you sow here, because it's a time event, right? So they use a lot of fear-based narrative programs, fear-based narrative things here to get the souls to focus on these things, and therefore creating potential time events for their narratives.
Have you been shown on the other side, when you talk about they, who these beings or groups are, from that perspective?
It's very vast. I mean, you could go. I'll be careful what I say here, because I know this is on YouTube. Yeah. But it's very it's very vast, and in a sense, it's, it's hidden, right? The greatest controlling structure is the one that is hidden. Right. So yeah, but I won't go into names here, because I don't necessarily want to get this.
No, you're good. Will there be? Do you see that? Will there be a time event where humanity is completely free of all control structures, and that's what I was showing. World would be like? Oh,
yeah, that's what I was showing at 16. Way from 16 years old is what people call the celebration, the event, the completion. What I've talked about before is where everything reopens up again for each soul to see. Everybody truly sees it all. You could say standing again for the second time, fully and completely. I think I lost you again, or you probably lost me. There we go.
Lost you.
All right.
Do you want to start from the celebration part?
Yeah. I'll start over from the celebration.
We're tuning the frequencies out here.
Yeah. All right. So I was showing at 16, right, what people consider the celebration, also the event, right, completion. And what that was showing to me is just that, all things opening back up again to each soul. You could say standing for the second time, fully and completely. Everybody's seeing it.
Would this be what some people are also calling the golden age? Is it a different Earth?
Yeah, I mean, you could say. I mean, there's so many different terminologies that people use: golden age, ascension. The event. Like, it's just different words, but it's literally just that. It's the soul, actually, each individual soul fully waking up and seeing all things again for what they really are. So.
Would we then still need to have this experience of the extremes of forgetting who we are, or is that no longer necessary?
Well, when you wake up to all things again, then no, it's that just, then you're experiencing the eternal aspect of who and what you really are, which is not what we are experiencing here, which is the opposite of that. So waking up completely, and all souls waking up, the event is literally shifting out of the, you could say, the extremes of this game that's at play, the duality, etc. Yeah. So and going back to our true state.
Wow. So humanity as a collective could enter a new realm.
A new state of well, not necessarily a new realm. It's what is the best way to get this across? It's just remembering all things again, completely reconnecting to the other side. You could say the other side and here meet together. Like, when you see that, this is in the churches a lot, actually, where you see a godlike figure reaching out, touching the finger of another person, right? That
Yeah,
bridge.
Michelangelo. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the bridge fully connecting again.
Yeah. That may have been what that painting
yeah.
refers to too.
Yeah. It's the first time that I'm making that connection to the painting. So it's, it's just something that came up to try to explain it better to people that are listening to this. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's what I was showing way back at 16. Yeah.
This might put people the wrong way, but you've mentioned that there are predetermined event markers in this realm. And that might scare people, be like, what do you mean that it's predetermined? Like, what do you mean when there's these events that were predetermined that, you know, are inevitable, that are happening sort of as markers for the progression of the construct? What is that really like?
Okay, so there are preset event markers, right? One of the, and it's like obvious one, right? It's right in front of your face. You can't deny it. Is that all souls will eventually access all things again, whether if that's through death, because all the, you know, people will die, they'll cross over and they'll see it all again, or controlled or controlled out of body state, right? That is an inevitable event. No matter which path you choose, you could choose trillions of different paths of experiences. You will reach that final destination, that preset marker of what this construct is preset for. Yeah. Which is accessing all things again. Now, there are certain other, you could say, give me a sec.
Yeah.
You could say that there are other preset event markers to take place again, based off certain, you could say your soul, creating, you know, certain preset events that you want to experience certain things, right? So there are preset things, but not everything is planned. When I say that, right? The one where you cross over and access all things again, you're not necessarily planning from that point, from the entry into whatever path you want to take. Like, all that's just you. Like, you're just choosing to have an experience, but that preset event marker to access it again, wake up again. Like, it's just going to happen. It's inevitable not to. Yeah. You know what I mean? And there are other ones as well, based off individual souls, soul, family, families, original pairs, etc.
I heard you say once, Darius, that a lot of the text and truths of the records were destroyed at one point. What can you say about that?
So a lot of the original things that have been written about, right, have been hidden, destroyed, right? It's like it's how you control people is suppression of knowledge as well. That on top of fear. So a lot of the original text of the construct creation was like all the stuff was written about. This is where you even get like the a lot of the ancient civilizations have all depicted very, very similar things. You know what I mean? So, but the details and stuff like that, they had all mapped out, right? So when I talk about the texts and the books and things like that being destroyed or even hidden as well, it's because of that. It's suppression of the knowledge. Because once a soul's fully knowledgeable on things, and collectively souls are all knowledgeable of things, there's no way you're controlling souls at all. Yeah. So
what records have you tried to get access to and that you found were no longer available or were maybe hidden or destroyed?
So for instance, like Egypt and Atlantis, what I've gotten with that. So that was once known about, yeah, but not necessarily. I don't think you could necessarily find that in books. One of the construct creation, the water separated from the waters, you know, they've tried to, there's truth there, but they've tried to distort that as well and suppress that knowledge as well, even though it's there. If you have the eyes to see it, you'll see it. But, you know, there's like things like that. And also the knowledge of who we are, you know, at large. So, but I won't necessarily go into a lot of detail, because going into a lot of detail with that, I have to say certain things that would probably and bring up certain names.
Get me banned on YouTube.
I'm not gonna do that. So certain things you just gotta keep it.
So in genetics, they've told us that humanity or humans are equipped with a 2-strand DNA. And you mentioned earlier in the interview about the 12-strand. I also accessed this through another book, Bringers of the Dawn, where they were essentially saying the same thing. So that was cool to see the parallel. What is that leap from the two-strand DNA to the 12-strand? Where do you see that? Is that already happening, or sort of where is that right now?
Well, it's just like all right. So it's not necessarily okay. So let's just say leaving the body. You don't need you don't need an activated DNA strand to necessarily do that, because leaving your bodies, you do that every single night anyways. People are just unconscious of it. They don't know how to control it, right? This is why dreams, typically accessing dimensional spaces, not understanding how to navigate certain areas. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the physical body's original blueprint was designed to access this construct of the same way that the soul was able to access that. This is why you can go into what people call the galactics, how they use ships that are based off consciousness, right? And they are able to traverse in their physical forms, their physical bodies, right? Through the many different realms within this construct. These physical bodies were designed for that very, very thing as well. But because of all the distortions, genetic modification, food, a whole host of things, right? Those natural abilities that the body should be able to do have been very much suppressed. Now, that doesn't necessarily suppress your abilities and capabilities of the soul, because you could still take your soul out and access all these different spaces of what I'm saying, right? Mm. But the physical body was original. The blueprint, original design was to do that as well.
And when we awaken the dormant abilities, how would things change?
Well, you're looking at times of all right. So the physical body, when you think of superheroes, like people usually think of that as movies, fantasy. It could be fantasy, but that's the type of capability that the physical bodies have to, like, that when everything is online, you would pretty much call us superheroes in a sense. But that suppression of distortion of all those things is what keeps us, like, the physical body's running on like 5% pretty much instead of 100.
Yeah. And what's your superpower?
I don't have any physical superpowers at the moment. But like I said, I have heightened abilities with intuition. I've noticed as well through the out of body stuff, like basic, like telepathic things as well. Like when I'm like people that I'm very close to in my circle in particular, like when they're thinking something, I'll just be like, I'll say it before they say it. And I'm like, and that has been happening to me a lot, Uh-huh. But yeah. But my main superpower, I would say, if you want to call it superpower, is the out of body state. Taking my soul out of the body. That's yeah.
You're mastering in that craft, and one thing I love about your mindset is that you grew up very focused on the physical, and you even offered to go professional in boxing. That could have been a whole different timeline for you, but you took a lot of the mindset that athletes or people that train their physical body, you've taken a lot of that mindset and applied it to the spiritual route. So I'd love to get inside of that mindset a little bit for people to understand how that's transferred into what you do now, the discipline, the focus, the simplicity. How has that mindset transferred into a path of spirituality, exploring, out of body states? What sort of sparked that in you?
Well, I was always spiritual, right? So I was always like you're talking about, like, as a child, being by my uncle and my family, right? Would basically teach me certain things of focus, simple focus things. Sitting in a room for 3-4 hours wasn't necessarily a thing, negative thing. It was basically to focus on certain things. Reading certain people's energies field is what I was being taught at a young age. Wow. Right? How to tune into people's fields.
Was that your father and your uncle that were teaching you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
So spirituality has been a very, you could say it's always been there in my upbringing, right? Now, in terms of the focus sense of basic things, which I think every child should be taught, right? Is basic focus, basic spiritual aspects, right, of their upbringing. But many people aren't. So this is why, I mean, kids come in with like a sense of it, right? Like they're awake, but then over time that just gets, suppressed, and therefore it becomes dormant. But my focus on the physical, right, is no different from my focus on the spiritual aspect as well. Because a lot of people are under this misconception that somehow focusing too much on the physical is not necessarily spiritual, right? Your focus is expressed in many different ways. That doesn't just stop with the spiritual aspect of you, right? If you have that focus in the spiritual sense, that is going to be applied in the physical sense as well. The physical body is very important to maintain the health of it, right? This is why there's such an onslaught and attack on the physical body and the physical health. So I wouldn't necessarily say, I mean, yes, the physical body discipline, right, has heightened spiritual gifts, but also the spiritual gifts have heightened my ability to focus on the physical as well. So they're pretty much married. This is where you get mind, body, spirit.
Huh. And the spirit being the soul.
Yeah. Or mind, body, spirit being the soul. But they would want you to believe somehow that being awake and very, you could say, enlightened is somehow a very passive thing, when it's not. People would want you to believe that love, unconditional love, is a very passive nature, but it's not. That frequency and that energy has the force to rip apart a mountain if it is applied correctly.
Because you even mentioned a lot of the men that are going into and exploring these realms will sometimes access more of that feminine energy. And what you're talking about with this focus, this dialed in nature, it's coming from a very masculine energy. So how have you seen the interchange and balance between those two?
I haven't really tuned in too much related to that. I just know that the masculine and feminine aspect, but I know that the onslaught and attack on people here also is a spiritual warfare as well, which that you could say that spiritual warfare is part of the over passiveness, not necessarily of just men, but of females as well, because it's a overly passiveness of the soul within this experience and forgetfulness, right? Because both men and female have the same capacity and abilities to in authority to do everything, right? So it's just the spirituality aspect as a whole. The spiritual movement has been very much, you could say,
distorted
and taking a detour to not necessarily the very direct focus and path, in a sense, which is not overly passive, overly submissive, but it's like I said, once you stand in love, right, it's not necessarily passive. It is a force, right? For instance, people that fall in love, right? That energy will drive two souls from opposite sides of the planet together. And no matter what hurdles or roadblocks, that frequency and that energy will pierce through that and break all barriers, right? So when people think of, when I say love and unconditional love, they usually sit back in submissiveness. And it is the very opposite of that. I would say that is what people would call the ultimate force of creation.
Is that the same force that created this universe?
Well, yeah, because everything's in a state of on the other side based off what I've experienced, unconditional love. So yeah.
Brother, we've been going deep. I just wanted to thank you for being so open to sharing all this wisdom. We end every podcast with a segment called the Final Trio. So they're just rapid fire questions that you can answer in any way that you want. But where would you send people first to connect with you further and learn more about your work?
Yeah, so everything that I do could just be accessed on my website, dariusjwright.com. You'll find everything there, what I teach, the methods that I teach for the out-of-body state, workshops that I hold, etc. All there.
Yeah. No social media, right?
No. It's no, I don't use social media. It distracts me from my work. And yeah, it's designed in a way to keep you focused on the wrong things. Yeah. So spending all your time on social media instead of focusing that time on the work and accessing things. Yeah. It's just, not what I do.
Yeah. What are you most focused on right now in terms of your work?
Just like I said in the beginning, at the current, this current state is pinpointing exactly the names of the 12 realms. That's what I'm doing currently with the out of body stuff. Yeah.
And when, this is just out of curiosity, when you are given a name, where do you receive that from? Is it a being that comes and says, we call this realm the heavenly realm, or whatever, or how does that information come to you?
Yeah. It's when I'm accessing it, it's typically shared with me. Like the first time I was accessing the heavenly realms, I was in the cathedrals, and what's very interesting in the cathedrals is that when they talk about the tablets, right, they actually have it's not technology the way that we use it, but they do have like things that look like iPhones and tablets that store information, like the tablets. Right.
Yeah.
And when I was viewing that in the cathedrals, I was like, what is this? Like, I'm like, what do you guys like? This is like, are you holding an iPhone? I was trying to like look to see what they're doing. It's just a whole database of information. And automatically as I'm there, the longer I'm there, I'm like, oh, this is the cathedrals. It's like the information just comes into you. Right. Yeah. Sometimes it's told, sometimes it's just like, oh yeah, it's a remembrance again, because you each soul remembers being in these places. It's just, the longer you're there, the more it's just like, oh yeah, I remember this. Yep. Yeah. Got it. It just comes back to you.
And they don't give you a time limit of like how long you can be there, for example.
Well, when you're doing the out of body stuff, the time limit is based off typically the sleep cycles. So This is where, so basically when the body starts to wake up, you could train the body and train yourself to leave the body multiple times in one night. So you may get pulled back into the body, but if you know what to do and apply it correctly, you could leave the body multiple times in one night and still access what you're accessing. And you're going to be accessing all night. Right. So, yeah.
Well, you have your whole method that I recommend people to go to on your website to teach them how to get out of the body and experience what you're experiencing, so they can see it for themselves too. I've seen reviews on your website of someone saying that, now they can confirm that what you're saying is true because they lived it for themselves. They went to these realms, they visited maybe the halls or the cathedrals, whatever it is. So, I really recommend people to go down that road. And I'm going to be a student of your work for the years to come, 100%. And for the final trio, brother, the first two questions are personalized to the guest, and the last one we ask at the end of every single show. The first one is, what are the unbreakable laws of the universe?
Okay. So the unbreakable and unchangeable things of the universe is this. So the universe, this I've stated this one in other interviews, but it's more of a question. Does the universe dictate consciousness, or does your consciousness dictate the universe? Right? And when you think about it, you'll realize that consciousness dictates the universe because your consciousness, being your soul, is the dictator of things. You live on forever. You are eternal. So that is an unbreakable truth of the universe. And with that as well is that you cannot have unconditional love with a judgment, right? That is unchangeable and unbreakable regardless of how you feel, perceptions, or beliefs, right? You cannot have unconditional love with a judgment. And with that very thing as well, you cannot have ultimate expression of freedom with a limitation. So those are the unchangeable things.
No freedom without limitation. I love that.
Ultimate expression of freedom with a limitation.
Yeah. The second question, brother, when you were going, let's bring you back to 16 years old, and you had suppressed a lot of your abilities for the younger years, and then at 16 they fully went online again. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you have told your 16-year-old self?
To stop, to get out of fear, and yeah, just to get out of fear, because that was the biggest battle and hurdle throughout this entire process. Yeah. Right. And the fear itself literally suppresses and blocks off access to things. So that would be the main advice that I would tell myself. Step out of fear and the true nature of what love is, that frequency.
Huh. Was there a certain type of fear that you worked with a lot when you were going through that at 16?
Well, the first one, which is kind of comical, is death. Because, I'm coming out, I'm fearing death, but then I'm coming out of my body and my consciousness is fully there and I'm not dying. It's just like, I don't know why that was there for as long as it was, because it's like, it doesn't make sense. But, it's like, oh, I'm out of my body. Death doesn't exist, but it's still deep down in the consciousness. You could say that was still there a little bit. So like silly stuff like that. And then also first time interacting with certain entities and beings, being afraid for some reason, thinking that they could harm me and trap me and all the things. And I've created a lot of thought forms, right? Thought dimensional spaces of things, coming after me. No different from when you're in quicksand in a dream, something's chasing you, thought forms, dimensional space stuff, right? So things like that, like I was, because all is projected in your field. And so experiencing very unnecessary things until I came to the realization that nothing could touch, harm, or entrap you, the soul, unless you believe it be so. And then that is, like I said, once you understand that, you're untouchable.
Yeah. If there's like a nefarious being, if there's a nefarious being coming your way, let's say in the out of body state, is there something that you can say to it that will, like you mentioned the analogy of the water, that purifies the parasites. Is there something that you could say or do in that state to make that fear or those beings dissipate?
In the beginning, I used to just command certain things, like command this to leave, etc. Like, I would do it in absolute authority, like standing in that authority. But not anymore. Yeah. But anymore, it's just like, I just got to the point where I even stopped, because that wasn't even in, because I realized that even speaking is unnecessary in a lot of sense, because I was just standing in the, you could say, fearlessness. And then just, just walking straight through, like nothing. Yeah. In
the I am presence. Beautiful. Yeah. Last question. I promise this is the last one, brother. Okay. Yeah. We call this the time capsule question. We ask this at the end of every show, and it invites us to travel out a bit into the future, 15, 20, 25 years down the line. And at that point, the people in my generation, the younger generations, even the kids that are coming into the world right now, will be stepping more into leadership positions around the world in new systems, and they're going to need a lot of guidance. So they find themselves in a room, and there's a bunch of time capsules laid out for them, each one with a name, and there's one with your name on it. And in this time capsule, you could leave behind anything that you would like to for these next generation of leaders. It doesn't have to be physical. It could be an energetic tool. It could be a frequency. It could be whatever you want. What would you put in there in the time capsule to help these leaders sort of guide us into this new earth, that the new realm that we're going into? What would you put in there?
Okay. I'll just put these words: what you focus on, you become, and what you think you are. What you focus on, you create. Right. So I'll just go back. What you focus on, you create. What you think, you become.
That's it. Yeah. Brother, this has been a beautiful interview. Thank you so much. I would absolutely love to do this again. I know we could dive into a lot of different rabbit holes and traverse even more. I could have kept going for the rest of the night, brother, but thank you. I really enjoyed your energy and all the things that are coming through right now for you. So I'm really excited as well for the path and the journey that you're on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.